Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. They were playing e4 as per flipping usual. My opponent responds with a Sicilian. We're of course going to go for a Mengarini Sicilian here with a3. And in response to d6, okay, this is kind of like we can't really particularly go for these b4 lines. We maybe can, maybe some kind of just wing gambit, but there's no piece that can come here and take after the recaptures, you know, in the e6 case or in the knight c6 case. We get that piece taking, we can play c3, d4. Here, I don't know, I tend to just kind of stick with a bit of an open Sicilian, knight f3, d4, and, you know, effectively just be, you know, a weird tempo down with a3 in the open Sicilian. We're going to take, of course, this way. We're going to play knight c3. We're going to play bishop e3. We're going to go f3. We're going to launch some flipping pawns at my opponent's king. I mean, f3, we're going to prevent them from being able to step into g4, harassing this bishop. We're going to add stability to my e4 pawn, of course, and I believe play a little queen d2, such that after they castle, we can maybe look to infiltrate, although not immediately, of course, because after they take h4. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Maybe normally because I've played h4 early, so they can't go for this. It doesn't seem like the stupidest idea, you know, not letting me play h4, g4, but are you going to castle this way? Because at that point, g3 starts to look pretty convincing. Or maybe h3. This could be genius. I don't know. We're going to castle here. I'm going to kind of see what my opponent's intentions are. Maybe they just start an attack towards my king, but, you know, they've got to trade this off first before pushing the b pawn or, like, play a bishop d7 or something. It doesn't seem... h3 hit. I mean, what? I'm going to take because that's an open file, and I've castled this way, and of course I want some activity on this side of the board. Now, if I take, rook takes, there's half a threat of you trading this off and then taking on f3, which maybe isn't the end of the world. Maybe I could just take, and, you know, play like a queen g2 to come and get rid of that rook. Maybe then there's queen d7. Huh. What a baffling position. I mean, it remains to be seen where they're going to castle. If they go this way, there might be some problems with their missing c-pawn. If they go this way, I mean, surely there are some problems with the open g-file. But then again, you know, it feels like what they've done is a little wrong, but it doesn't seem like I can immediately punish it in any obvious way. Why just play bishop c4, try and keep material on the board? I mean, if your king is in the center uncastled and ostensibly weaker than mine, surely keeping the material on the board, maybe we can drop this back here and attack towards the f-file. Could make sense. We do then just give them this blockading bishop on the h3 square, preventing me ever playing h4. What a genuinely interesting move. h5, h4, h3, and then bishop takes. What a fantastic idea. It could be dodgy. I mean, takes, queen g2, queen d7. I don't know, maybe I just play takes, and then there's like a... You know what? Genuinely, I'm playing king b1. This is a small improvement to my position. It gets off any bishop h6 ideas. I don't know, there's some universe where I take, rook takes, f4, maybe end up playing f5 to try and disconnect the queen from the defensive here, and then there's a rook sack here and a bishop h6. I don't really know. Just in general, the king's better on b1. Pretty much every time you queenside castle, I believe it's not a bad idea to just consider king b1 if you're at a loss for a different move. It's slightly slow. Now, they do play a6, and if you start attacking like this, are they just going to leave their king in the center? Because if they do that, surely I need to be opening up the center. I feel like f4, e5 has to happen. Or even f4, f5. Right, f4's happening. f4's happening because if you go knight here, you know what? Bishop g1, I'm absolutely fine. I'm going to keep that bishop. Although then I can't kick the knight. What a fascinating position. I've played this kind of game plan like so many times in this position particularly, for instance. Maybe before h5. But, you know, h5 and then me not playing h4, them taking advantage of it and playing h4 themselves. They do go in with the knight. I don't want to give you this bishop. I will go back here. In general, I can then play h3. I can't here. I might be just making a series of mistakes. And this could be legitimately dodgy play. In fact, I think f4 is probably very dodgy. There is this fundamental truth to the fact that, like, okay, if you castle this way, what you've done here feels okay. At least immediately you can't castle because I nabbed that bishop, so then you've got to trade it off. Then castle, I just play like f5 and tear this all open. And if you castle this, yeah, okay, well now you can't castle this way, so I don't know, you shouldn't be able to leave your king in the center and it go unpunished, you know. But maybe you absolutely can. Maybe I don't understand chess, and maybe my opponent's somehow just got a fantastic position. I'm gonna play f5. I'm gonna play f5. Whatever. If you want to take this, be my guest. My bishop's actually fine on g1. I'm doing this defensive job. I want to tear some stuff open. I need to make a pawn break because this is getting extremely frustrating. It's move 15 and my opponent's king is still uncastled. They are being rather reckless with their long-term king safety prospects, and I feel as though I need to jump on that and try to do something aggressive. I feel as though f5 is probably the right kind of idea. You can't get away with a g5 because I just take here, and so this tension here is forced. You cannot dissolve it and just push past. I feel as though either I'm taking here or you're taking, and if you take, you know, a knight takes, tempo on here, open files, we can take this, get a rook here maybe, and if you castle, of course, then I can take this, and if you trade this first and then castle, I mean, I'm opening this up. I feel good about this. I think, you know, I was at a bit of a loss We do see bishop h6. You see what I mean with my king not being on c1? That could have been wildly problematic. I do feel as though, can I take this? Here, I get to take this. But then you take here? I'm just thinking that takes, and then let's say pawn takes queen here could be very pleasant. Because here we take en passant. I don't know where else to move my queen right now. Because, you know, she can't stay anywhere on these squares. Don't really want to get in the way of the bishop. I could just play queen e1, to be honest, though. And then if you leave your king in the center, I mean, the queen on e1, probably that makes some sense. Taking your bishop off this diagonal, okay, temporary win, but with my king not even there, that feels like a long-term poor decision. I mean, it'd be cool to try and sack my queen here, but I can't get, you know, the pieces for it. So you just take here and everything collapses. I think I'm going to go queen e1. I like queen e1. We just step to the side. I mean, this is looking a little 960-esque. We got the two bishops, the rook, and all the major pieces sitting there on the back rank, none of which, apart from the rook on h1, of course, are in their home squares. Now you've got to address this. You've also probably got to address this somehow. Where's your king ending up? They do make this trade. Could I take here? Bishop here. I take here. I don't know. Bishop goes back. Yeah, that probably sucks, right? Let's just take. Let's not try and overcomplicate things immediately. Maybe there's this. I mean, there is this. I don't know. It's not a maybe. However, if I take, and then pick this up, I just feel like, I don't know, I'm threatening. The thing is, I'm not even threatening mate there, so maybe that's not playable because then you win this. I go in with check, you go king here, and you're somehow just fine. Hold on, knight e3, takes here. You pick this up, check, king e6, and I genuinely don't see a way forward. God damn it. Okay, but takes, and then taking seems to be a good idea. I want to keep the initiative here, you know? If I'm making the claim that you're doing something dodgy with your king, I need to keep the attacking initiative. We're going to go here, and then I think I'm going to take this first, such that you don't have the ability to pick up that piece. Again, we keep the initiative. We do this. You have to recapture when I take here. You have to recapture when I take here. Then I'm taking here. I've got knight d5 on the horizon. This seems right. This seems right. I think you're going to get punished for this fundamentally dubious idea. It felt like, you know, you were doing something very interesting for a minute there, but surely now I just take this. And now I've got the tempo of here, and it doesn't need to be tempo, you know, of mate, because of course you're not getting a free piece. So I don't really have as much to prove there. You can take like this, but then again, you're looking at absolutely nowhere to castle. King should be weak. Mine should be a little safer. And I should probably be able to play knight d5, and that's going to be a very good move. Tempo on this. Get the knight on a beautiful square. If you ever play this, you've pushed every single pawn apart from your B pawn. That can't make too much sense. I like attacking this pawn though, to be completely honest. I'd love to be able to do it with tempo on the bishop as well. It's half an idea to go queen d3. You move your bishop then, let's say just bishop back to h6. Then I go e5. Tempo on this. Threaten to take. Or threaten to try and squeeze this down. Hold on. You know what? Queen d3. I really like this. I really like this idea of, you know, getting the queen to a good active square with tempo on this and having tempo on the bishop, and then maybe threatening this e5. You can't take because of this. Therefore, maybe I can sneak past with e6, and the king is not going to be able to flee so easily to that d7 square. I'm a big fan of this. Let's go for it. Maybe knight e5 is more appropriate, but this looks interesting. Now, I think they should go king d7 straight away here and simply let me have this pawn. I think you need to get your king over here. Again, you can't leave it in the center, and right now you might have to take some drastic measures to get it out of the center, which by I mean just immediately sprinting as far away as you can. If you get the king to b8, I mean, the game is still on. However, if you try and defend this, for instance, I squeeze you in here and your king's going nowhere. And I feel like that should bear immense amounts of fruit for my position. Surely, right, I'm doing this. I just have to be doing this. The king's in the center. You're not castling. I mean, okay, e6. Now, if you do this, is that... Damn it, is there just flipping d5 here and you just take? No, again, the king's still very open. Mine's safe, and that's all I really care about. Right now, though, there are interesting ideas, but maybe I just get knight a4. It's not exactly a completely impenetrable defense I've got going on here, but it's definitely safer than this. They go after this pawn. I think maybe pushing this would have been an interesting idea, because now I feel like I can defend it and also blockade this push. Maybe they still run away with this, though. Okay, I'm going to start with this. I like blockading this. Maybe d5 is where my knight should have gone. I like keeping this pawn in here. Maybe you just run away this way and you do your sort of 3-king maneuver. But there's also just kind of a quite simple... Aha. I see. Good point. Good point, well made. Here is definitely a problem. What if I move my knight? Because I can now move my knight with tempo on your bishop. And so just pivoting it across here, and maybe we get into here, and maybe you can't run this way. Maybe we really try and suffocate that king. Maybe I'm dead lost. Maybe rook takes c2, and I'm actually dead lost here. But rook takes c2, I pick this up. You don't have a check. You maybe will have a check. I think I just picked this up. I mean, this rook is useless right now. Even though you've absolutely correctly and impressively torn open my king, your queen doesn't have this kind of immediate, like, queen b6 threat. Now, maybe just queen c7's enough here. I'd be tempted to imagine that something like queen b3 could serve me quite well, especially given the rook c3 is not a move because the knight holds this. I really would love to be able to get my knight to f7 and really just kind of make the point as instructively as possible that this king should have castled at some point. But that point is kind of undermined by the fact that my king is now looking quite open as well. It seems like there should be some tactic at some point. They're going to try and infiltrate here. What do I do? Just rook c1, right? I feel like rook c1 is just a bit of a no-brainer. You have no check. If you take, I get tempo on your queen and infiltration down the c-file. You have to move your queen to d8, b8, or a8. That can't make sense. But if you don't take, I'm taking this. Unless you play this, obviously that's a move and I didn't consider it because I suck at this game. Is there just rook h2? Oh my lord, I hate this game. Obviously there's rook h2. How did I not think about that? I literally said, calm down. You're probably still okay. Rook h2, I take this, check here, I get mated, fantastic. Rook h2, I take this, check here, I get mated. Okay, so rook h2, I can't take either rook. Turns out I suck at the game. However, no, I'm also getting mated here. Oh man, queen b3. I mean, I can't allow this mate. Let's play queen b3. We hold this, we hold this. Maybe you just go check here, rather, sorry, here, check here, take, and you might be fine. I've got a knight and 2 rooks, and you've got a queen and like 5 pawns. God damn. Or a queen and 4 pawns, I guess, for the exchange. Probably that's better in the end game, right? Because you're just going to end up promoting one of those pawns. I feel like coordinating my pieces with 1 minute and 8 seconds left. I mean, regardless, this is a very interesting game. Rook takes h2, however. Definitely should have seen that coming. Can't believe I didn't, to be honest. But they've made a move. What was it? They took here. Why? Now I take here. What? That's a mate threat. Your king's in the center. You don't have a check. You don't have a check. You don't have any checks. Your king's in the center. I've got rook here as a mate threat. You can't move the queen anywhere except from along this file. Maybe, to be fair, maybe they didn't have a very compelling... I feel like they should have gone for this exchange, actually, and then picked up this pawn. Because once you get rid of this pawn, you're not getting mated anymore. Takes. I mean, your rook's hanging. There's a mate threat hanging. That can't have been right. Flipping hell. I mean, again, it is the weakness of this king that's the reason that they've blundered there. I do think that rook b2, though, maybe they just didn't see the idea. Rook b2. Straight resignation. What an interesting game of chess. Let's analyze. Okay, so here we are in the analysis. That was a mess. I can only apologize. I've just seen something which has made my skin positively crawl, and it was the fact that in this position at the end, once they'd taken here, absolutely I could have just taken this rook, because here, this is not checkmate. This is obviously not checkmate. The rook would be on h2. They have no check here. Not only do they have no check, but this is a mate threat. I would have been completely winning. Not only is it a mate threat, but it's a threat to win their flipping queen. Here, bang, easy money. I can maybe even sack this and push this. I don't know. Probably not, but I could do this because it's fancy and make a new queen. I'm very sorry to any of you that were painfully aware of that while I was doing my calculation. Queen b3, they did just have this simplification tactic here, and then picking this up. This would have been a very even position. Surprisingly, I probably would not have been able to hold it if we're being 100% honest, although this coming in here, hold on, you don't have a check here. You do have a check like this, but some kind of knight c3, and then it doesn't seem obvious. Like, for instance, if you move this, I'm going here. No, I'm not. That queen can take. Okay. Oh, obviously I'm doing this. There are ways for them to blunder. Rook here is definitely what I'd have played, and it does become kind of difficult to play. You know, again, either of these are blunders. This is clearly a blunder, but that's way more obvious. This is also a blunder. You know, they could blunder a fork in a billion different ways. They could also go here. It was definitely a dangerous position for them. It would have been interesting to go into it, and I have to admit, I'm frankly grateful that they played this rook takes h1 move instead, allowing me to go for this, and then ignoring the very marginal voice break there. It's just a forced mate in 7. I mean, I don't know what your best defense is. Rook c1 check. Okay, yeah, you just give up the piece, and clearly you're completely dead. But this idea of e6, I feel like there were a lot of tactics there. Also, again, I'm doing this kind of anachronistically. We're not quite going through in chronological order here, but they came to defend. The e6 idea was fantastic, and then obviously they have all of this. Queen d5 makes no sense. The knight belongs on d5. I don't need to defend this pawn, because knight d5, you take this, I'm playing rook here, and good knight to flipping e7. So I think I got a bit married to the idea of keeping that pawn there and, you know, applying pressure and maybe going rook g1 and here, although that wasn't possible anyway because of the bishop. I just love this pawn and I love the squeeze here. I think I got a bit tunnel visioned on one idea. I should have been looking to bring my knight. I put the queen there, and I'm pretty sure I said the knight definitely belonged there. And this is painfully obvious that after this, I have rook e1. Now, had they gone for, apparently bishop f2 is the best move, maybe threatening to do this because then there's no rook e1. I can just play rook f1 and like we're coming in, we're doing damage, and there's no way I'm not significantly better here. But instead I went for the queen. They then had this good tactic, and then this was the other blunder. There were 3 blunders. One of them was bringing the queen back and not seeing that whole idea here. Then at this point they should have gone rook b6. I'd have had to go b3. They'd have had probably a very convincing looking attack, although it's still not obvious. Rook b5 though, I guess, and I can't go here. So like queen here, and then maybe you can take this. I don't know. Effectively, they could have kept their attack way more alive with rook b6. Instead, they took on c2. I correctly identified that I was safe here because they had no checks. Rook here is a blunder, which probably mean a mistake, but whatever. Rook here is the best move, and then just missing this fact, the fact that there was no check after this. I just thought this was mate. I convinced myself that rook h2 was a move. I've had a bad day of recording. I've tried to get a nice game for you guys quite a few times and messed it up quite a few times. You know, I can put that down to lack of sleep, I don't know, whatever. Not had the best day, who knows? But I think I was psychologically predisposed to be like, oh, of course you've blundered this one as well. But apart from that, apart from those 3 points, the progression up to here is relatively smooth, although I did garner yeah, this opening is not particularly interesting. It's just the kind of setup I go for. Queen here. Well, look at this. h4, I castle. h3. Now, I should have pushed past, which I don't know why I didn't even consider that, because of course this just becomes an isolated weakness that I can easily put pressure on. Maybe even like knight here, or this knight here, this knight here. So that's something that I definitely need to consider in the future, just not taking for the sake of it. I kind of was half convinced they were just going to castle kingside and the open g file would be useful, but takes. Then king b1, not a bad move at all. But the reason that I had a little more advantage down here is because, of course, I could have gone for that g4 and then just won the pawn. Then f4, slightly inaccurate, but probably the best move of the game, insofar as I'm recognizing they're not castling. I'm playing f5. They make this blunder here. Not obvious it's a blunder, but I think I did correctly identify that it wasn't the greatest move, because after queen e1, my queen's just fine. Your bishop's not on this diagonal. It's just a waste of tempo. You know, that king b1 was actually quite mature. I'm happy with that. I'll probably stick to trying to play that in the near future. They go for this fork idea. We take, and then I should have gone for knight d5. Okay. I still like queen d3. I like my idea of sneaking past. However, they could have done this, and then after this, could have just taken the pawn, allowed this, and gone this way. That does make a lot of sense. I kind of half thought that's what they should do and escape this way and allow this. Which, after this e5 idea, they defended the pawn erroneously. We correctly played e6. We've got the bind in there, and then, you know, there is this mistake. I should have noticed I didn't need to hold on to this, and Christ, man, I had an amazing position here after e6, and then just played 2 terrible moves. Although at no point more losing. Hold on, where's the, there's the graph, sorry. At no point more losing than right here, where I wasn't losing, it was just drawing, or at least, you know, equal winning chances. They should have played for this, they didn't, and then, you know, a few missed wins, but eventually getting the job done due to this being kind of difficult for my opponent, although I do think they should have gone for this position, as I said. Here, rook here, and maybe queen e5, move the king. And you've effectively just got to make sure not to blunder a fork. I mean, you could give a check, get carried away, and then start trying to push a pawn, and all of a sudden, bang. So this would definitely have been a very interesting endgame. I mean, you know, a queen and 4 pawns for 2 rooks and a knight is a weird way to get a numerically equal exchange of material, but a beautiful and fascinating one. However, yeah, they erroneously took on h1, and after takes, it is that gorgeous flipping e-pawn. The fact that they didn't castle, the fact that king was in the center, we exploited that, I think, reasonably. Definitely a more dubious game. A few missed opportunities, but hopefully I'll learn from them. Especially, honestly, just maybe it seems like the least deep of the mistakes, but the earlier just g4 here didn't even cross my mind for some reason. Or if it did, I didn't pay much attention. I just loved the idea of tearing this open. Anyway, very interesting game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed this kind of more dubious game. I tend to try and get lovely games to make into YouTube videos. This was definitely very interesting. I've got stuff to learn. I'm going to start a series. I haven't worked out what series yet, you know, a name for it or the kind of general content I'll be making, but there'll be some kind of series with more progression than just random games. Maybe one where I'll play like 15-10, try and play a little longer and try and see if I can actually get a bit better at this game. And maybe post like every single 15-10 game I play or something, and eventually build up to playing some rated over the board games. I don't know, you know, there is going to be some more sort of continuity to some of the content on this channel. And I won't just be posting wins, of course, but for now, getting back into the swing of things, I just wanted to, you know, get a bunch of good games out there. This is now, we're straying into a little bit more dubious, but as long as you guys enjoyed and found it instructive and found it entertaining primarily, then that's all I really care about. So let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Check out the Patreon. It's the #1 way to support the channel. I don't know if you can tell right now, I am sweating so badly. It is 31 degrees in London. I'm going to go and drink Lucozade Ice Kick out of a pint glass with ice in. Oh my lord, double the ice. See you next time. Goodbye.